is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the editor-in-chief of Unwinnable.com. He's not even supposed to be here today, man. Stu Horvath.
Why am I here? We're off schedule. I don't understand.
Well, because we've got some new and exciting things in the work, and we wanted to share it with our listeners.
Like what, Hambone? Tell me more.
Well, I will tell you more. In my best sales pitch voice. What's cool is we've been doing this podcast now for a little over a year.
Yeah.
And we absolutely love getting together, hanging out, and learning more about the histories of RPGs and also talking about new RPGs and the things that excite us about role-playing games and games in general.
Exactly. Because we don't have time to play all the games. We can at least sit around and talk about them.
Yeah. We live vicariously through our own podcast, which is so meta, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And that being said, we also realize that doing a show only twice a month really does limit us in the content that we can produce and the amount of things we can talk about.
It's true.
And for guys who have to live vicariously through their own podcast, that just wasn't going to stand.
It's true. I just need more.
I need more too. I'm hungry. Like a hungry hippo. See, it's all about games. So here's the thing. Stu and I got together and we hatched a plan to finally bring the Vintage RPG to our listeners and the world weekly. And I've never been more excited about a decision in my life because this means I get to hang out with my buddy Stu more. It means I get to talk about more games. It means we get to bring you more interviews with creators of those games that we love so much. Because when we only have 2 times a month to do it, it kind of puts the pressure on us to be selective. We don't want to be selective. We want to share everything with you. So starting in December, which is
right now,
as we speak,
it just turned December.
Yeah, The clock turned midnight. We're past our bedtime, everybody. We're bringing you Vintage RPG once a week.
Yeah, this is the start. This is the first part. It's now you can't get rid of us. We're going to be showing up at your house every Monday.
And we expect coffee and scones. So what this actually means to you, the listener, is that we are going to bring you twice a month the traditional style Vintage RPG episode that you've known to come and love. We're also going to bring you an episode that'll be an interview with a creator. And we're also going to bring some fun mini episodes into the mix as well, like the one we're doing today, where a little later, we're going to talk about the Rust Monster. And I'm actually going to bring my own small show to our podcast, which is called Hambone's Game Night, where I'm going to do a little riff on classic games for everyone to listen to and enjoy.
I don't know if you guys detected a theme, but it's all very game-centric.
It's kind of our thing, yo. It's what we do.
I think the thing that we hear most from people is that they want the podcast episodes to be longer. And I don't agree with that. I wouldn't want to listen to me for an hour and a half.
We're funny for like 30 minutes tops.
Yeah. After that, I revert back to serious brooding mode. But by doing it weekly, I feel like we can do lots of little things, like stuff that, to fill the regular podcast, which admittedly is fairly brief. We have to kind of do bigger topics. Now we can kind of do a module.
Exactly.
I'm just excited to kind of do smaller stuff and get weirder with it.
It's cool because it gives us the freedom to continue to do the broad stroke episodes that we do, but also kind of get into the nuance of D&D and get into the real nitty gritty of the things that people actually use and play most.
Yeah. And we always talk about wanting to go back and drill down into stuff. And I think that this is the way to do it.
This is going to be an awesome journey for everybody involved. So if you want to come on that journey with us, we are going to do a quick shameless plug for our Patreon right now.
Yeah.
Because our Patreon actually helps us offset the cost of making a show, which it does take a lot of time to put a show together, and it also takes a little bit of money. So anything that you can spare will help us, and we're willing to even give back even more on our Patreon. Stu writes incredible essays. I do unboxing videos that now I'm finally able to shoot in 4K, so they're going to look even better. I might even buy a new tablecloth to shoot them on. Spiderweb's pretty cool, though.
The Spiderweb is cool. I like that one.
Also, we get you early release episodes of this podcast, which are going to be hitting more and more frequently now that we're going to be going weekly. And literally anything else that we can think of that we can do extra for the people who are supporting our Patreon, we want to be able to do for you. We've got the Slack involved as well. Eventually, we're going to be putting out some cool merch that you're going to get the first bit of 411 on once we get that all situated. So we want you to become part of this journey with us. So please, if you can, think about going to patreon.com/vintagerpg and checking out the different tiers that we offer because we do some pretty cool stuff on the other part of the internet, the kind you have to pay for.
One of my favorite things about the Vintage RPG feed is just the conversations that I have every day with folks who are commenting on the stuff that I post. And it's fantastic because, like, I have instant access to a whole bunch of people who play the nerdy games and love the stuff that I love, and we get to talk about it. And the Patreon, because we have the Slack set up through that, you can join the Slack as a member of the Patreon and we can kind of chat more. And we've had like different kinds of conversations on the Patreon. And it's just another way to kind of keep talking to you guys because it's awesome. I love you guys.
Yeah, we're big fans of you.
Yeah.
And
you make this worth doing.
You really do make this worth doing. Also, you also hip us to like some really cool stuff that might not have landed on our radar.
That's true.
And put us in some really cool, interesting directions as well, which we really do appreciate because we like games. We might not get to play every one of them, but man, we like learning about them.
Recently, somebody commented on the feed, games are meant to be played. And I was just like, well, games are really meant to be read, I think, from my personal experience. Like, I don't have the time to play them, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the benefit of we have our own board game club that we've been doing together. Stu for longer than I have because I was still on the road a lot. But, every Friday night we get together and we do play board games. And now recently, we've finally been able to once a month get together and play an RPG, which you will definitely be hearing more about as the episodes go on because now we have more time to talk about them.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool as well. And going forward, these little mini episodes aren't going to be just a sales pitch and just kind of reading you into what's happening next. This is just a one-off.
Yeah, I mean, we got to do it every once in a while.
Yes, because, how would you know?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about things like the Rust Monster.
Let's talk about the Rust Monster.
So I've been thinking about the Rust Monster a lot. And for those who don't know, the Rust Monster is a classic D&D monster. Kind of looks like a cockroach. It has like a weird propeller fin tail.
Gross.
Yeah, they're creepy. They have antenna that turns ferrous metals into rust.
Yeah, it is bad biscuits when you run across one for the first time.
Yeah, so you hit that guy in the head with your sword, and then that guy turns your sword into a pile of red dust.
I will go on record and say one of the most jerky moves that a DM can do, especially for an adventure. It's like it really is a one-trick pony, though.
Yeah.
Because once you actually know what a rust monster is, you're like, not even with your sword.
Yeah, I need some bug spray.
Yeah. Or a ranged weapon, preferably magical.
Yeah, it's just a game mechanic wrapped in like a critter, right? It's just like, this is how I take away your metal items that you like.
Right.
And the packaging is just like, ooh, gross bug. So Gary Gygax has this bag of toys, right? The cheap plastic dinosaurs that you get from the 5 and 10?
Oh, I used to love those.
Yeah, so do I. Like, I remember you would see, like, actual dinosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus Rex or Brontosaurus or whatever. I know Brontosaurus isn't really a dinosaur anymore, but I refuse. It's like Pluto. It's a planet, man.
That's the line, and I will not cross it. I hold that line.
But then every once in a while, you would get, like, a weird thing that you would look at, and it's just like, oh, it kind of looks like a dinosaur, but it isn't. And, like, these were little kaiju. They're Hong Kong knockoffs of monsters that appeared in like the Ultraman
and
TV
Godzilla.
show. Yeah, and Godzilla. And one of these things actually is the Rust Monster. It was just in there with the prehistoric animals. It was just like, why is there a giant cockroach in my bag of dinosaurs?
So gross.
So in the mid-70s, Gygax has a bag of these things, and he would just throw stuff out onto the table and be like, that's what you're fighting. And I love that because I feel like in, 50 years on, we all know the classic D&D monsters. We know the Rust Monster, right?
Oh, yes.
But back then, it was just, there was no context for that. It was a critter from a bag of knockoff toys.
It looks like a cockroach.
And the players had to kind of deal with that and figure out how to fight it. And like, they had no way of knowing what it was.
So the other day, I was actually in 7-Eleven, as I've been known to do, to pick up some of my Coca-Cola Zeros and my Smart Waters. We're not sponsored, but I just drank a lot of it. And I run into my old friend Pedro, who's now working on laying cable wire in the city of New York under the ground. And he's like telling me, he's like, yeah, it's crazy, man. He's like, it's like your old D&D dungeons you used to tell me about. They've got these cockroaches. And he describes the cockroach to me. And I was like, it's a Rust Monster. He goes, is that bad? I go, it's so bad. He goes, well, then it's terrible because there's a lot of them under the streets.
Oh, God. I can't even think about it.
But that's the thing. The Rust Monster always should and has for decades now instilled a sense of general, oh no, in the hearts and minds of players.
I keep thinking about it, and it's just that. And a lot of the other like wacko monsters that kind of came out that were just a matter of Gygax or early dungeon masters just being like, I have this thing, I'm going to put it on the table and my players have to deal with it, is sort of just broadly symbolic of like how crazy and Wild West like the early tabletop role-playing game scene was, because nothing was defined and nothing was a classic yet. There weren't iconic monsters. Like none of that stuff existed.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was at Gen Con and I was talking to Tracy Hickman once and I got him to sign my original copy of Ravenloft. And I said, I got to ask. Because, there's always those things that pop up and you're standing in front of like one of your favorite creators and you've been dying to know. And they're going to tell you if you ask them very nicely. I was like, I have to know. Why a rust monster of all creatures in this like universal monster gothic horror that is Ravenloft? And he was like, wouldn't you be scared if you popped up in front of a rust monster in a dungeon? And I was like, you're right. Case in point. Because it always felt so out of place to me. But, as he says it to me, I was looking at him going, yeah. I would be very much like, all right, I already have to deal with vampires, ghouls, and zombies. And now here's the thing that'll actually destroy the weapon that I need to kill the vampires, ghouls, and zombies.
Yeah, you lose sight of the fact that how creepy and terrifying it is because you know the mechanic behind it. You know its sort of legacy. So like it seems out of context for you now because you're a DM and you've used a rust monster against players. Back when that first came out, like there was less context for that, right?
Right. It's just more, oh crap, this is happening and I don't like it.
Yeah. And like I think that stuff's kind of the most fun part about D&D. Like remember when in my campaign when you guys fought that living castle and I built it out of Legos?
For the listener at home, you can't see how big and triggered my eyes are right now. Yes, Stu, I remember.
That was a lot of fun, right?
For you.
But like the idea of using Legos to create this thing that's on the table that you guys all were varying levels of experience with D&D, but you all kind of had an idea, but you throw something like that out there and it's just like, what do? We don't know anything about it, which is exactly what your characters would feel, right?
Yeah. I always felt like it's hard to kill something without legs.
So that's sort of why I wanted to bring up the Rust Monster for the first episode of this new era, because it's all about the unknown.
Yeah. And where we're going, we don't need roads.
Or legs.
Too soon. So we're going to be coming at you now weekly with more fun episodes where we might be riffing on monsters. We might be riffing on old modules. We might be riffing on something completely out of left field, but we're about to have a lot of fun. And we're so happy that you're going to come on this journey with us because it's about to get seriously awesome. I admittedly didn't know where I was going with that, but...
That's right. I in the pause, I was like, oh, God, does he want me to speak?
Yeah. No, I kind of mentally went blank.
Yeah, that's all right.
The power of editing, I'm still going to leave this in because...
Hey, they deserve to know.
Because they you know what? Here it is, behind the scenes. We're breaking kayfabe, guys. It's a mess. So, folks, thank you so much for listening to our podcast for the last year and change, and we really do look forward to putting out more content for you to check out and listen to. Stu, where can the people find you?
I am on Instagram every day at Vintage RPG, posting about role-playing stuff and monsters and board games sometimes. And
so much awesome. Yeah. You can find me on the Twitter at Handbreaker. I tweet about Dungeons and Dragons. I tweet about cute animals. I tweet about professional wrestling. You can follow my daily adventures on Instagram at John Hambone McGuire, where I'm actually like leaving the house and doing stuff. I'm seeing some cool stuff. Come along for the ride with me. Say hi. I am there every single day. You can also check out my other podcast, My Thai Happy Hour. It's pop culture for weirdos wherever podcasts are found. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.